This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain.
One of the better moments from the Wizard of Oz. If I only had a brain. As we continue here on Boomer Life, and our conversation today with our friends from Neurokinetics Clinic in Vancouver is all about brain and brain issues. Specifically on the program today, we're talking about pain and trauma issues. Our guest in studio, Philippe Souvestre, is the founder and president of Neurokinetics Clinic in Vancouver. Sonia Dale is the clinic manager, and the new guy on the team is J.C. Gordon, who's Director of Liaison and Logistics, all three in studio this time. And what a terrific inclusion of Dwayne for the program, Philippe. A great example of the process that a patient goes through. And again, Sonia, I think a good example of someone who calls Neurokinetics, who just has, they've had it. They've had the biscuit. They're at the end of their tether. They've seen too many other people. They've received limited, if any, satisfaction. They're going crazy. And I don't mean that lightly. In many cases, they actually feel that they're kind of losing it.
Yes, that's right. It's having the burden of not having the right answers or having the unclarity. So that's what makes them feel a certain way. They've had so many other places they've been through where they've just said, you know what, hands up in the air and said, there's no answers.
Right.
So, that's what makes them feel a certain way, which is normal feeling for them to feel that way when you have closed doors in your face.
Absolutely. And Philippe, why is it that so many people suffering from these extreme pain processes, why can't they get adequate pain relief elsewhere?
I think it ties with the evolution of neuroscience and the evolution of medicine in general. There is a lot of new changes in mindset through the past 10 years, which have been evolving favorably into the medical milieu. There are still a lot of resistance, unfortunately, about that, but I can see now a change overall with the new generation of doctors coming in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's more acceptance of non-traditional types of pain by the younger generation of docs.
You could say that.
Okay.
An example, typical example a little bit here of context would be, for example, what was traditionally called or classically called 30, 40 years ago like complementary and alternative medicine,
yes,
now is changing into what is called functional medicine.
Right, and when they were calling it alternative medicine 30 years ago, they weren't saying it in a complimentary way either. It was kind of, they were looking down their noses at it. And that, you're absolutely right, does represent a change because there's a lot more acceptance of that now, isn't there?
And this is, it is an open gate to integration.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of pain relief, though, when people come and call poor Sonia on the phone and just come absolutely unglued because they've had such difficulty being taken seriously in some cases that finally when someone offers a sympathetic ear and asks really good questions, a lot of people react emotionally, don't they?
Yeah. They do, yes.
I actually had, Sterling, I had somebody call us the other day, and she had suffered pain for over 8 years. She had had no relief whatsoever. And I spoke to her for about 20 minutes' time, and she started breaking down and crying.
Right.
And she was, for the first time in 8 years, she says, I am now hopeful that I don't have to live with my pain anymore.
Right.
The burdens, the change in life, the change in friends and in lifestyle, pain can be a debilitating aspect for anybody's life.
And it can also be very isolating. I mean, I know a woman who lives in her home, and she has so much pain in her knees, she can't go up and down the stairs to answer her front door. She's a prisoner in her own house. She can't get out.
Yes.
She physically cannot walk down the steps to leave her house. This is pretty common, Philippe. This is not rare stuff anymore, is it?
This is the real world,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So
Yes.
when and I wrote down the types of pain that you identified at the beginning of the program. You talked about physical, cognitive, emotional, and intellectual pain. And sometimes, as I also asked, they can sort of compound and pile on top of each other, which can generally, or which I'm sure leads to even more stress, if nothing else, and I'm sure more than a little anxiety in a person's life. So square that circle for us. How does it all work out?
Well, you just did it. You just did it, Sterling. There is a sequence, there is a cascade of chain of event that takes place when one begins to feel pain on a chronic fashion. The difference between acute pain and chronic pain is 6-month timeline.
Okay.
Whatever the pain is, it is expected that that pain, whatever it is, physical, emotional, or cognitive, or else, is supposed to be fading out of normal regulatory compensatory mechanisms which we are gifted with normally.
Right. Our healing systems.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Whether mental or physical.
Right. Sure.
If there is something which is insufficient, either way or anywhere in these very subtle mechanisms organization, then we'll begin to get into chronic fashion, a chronic modality of whatever symptom, including here pain, as today's theme is about pain. And it is just a matter of time to go from acute pain, overlooked, to chronic pain.
I wanted to ask you about a timeline because last month when we were talking about dizziness and balance and those issues, and you at the time said, look, if you experience this kind of these symptoms in an ongoing way for any more than 6 months, you really need to seek professional help. Is 6 months the guideline for chronic pain as well, Dr. Philippe, or is there a different timeline dealing with it beyond which you really just need to go see somebody?
Well, 6 months is a good timeline.
Okay.
To keep it simple.
Okay.
Yes.
6 months.
6 months.
But, 6 months is a lifetime, JC, when you're living with chronic pain. It's just there's not a minute of fun in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is what I hear time and time again, Sterling, when people call us up, that they have been through the system. They've seen specialist after specialist.
Right.
They've been in the little box of expertise of a particular specialist that hasn't been able to help. And when they understand the neurokinetics model, that we're dealing with the root cause of this problem, which is in the brain, and we're able to optimize the brain. We're able to eliminate the dysfunction and turn it into function, and the pain disappears.
Mm-hmm.
This is a light that's been opened up to many of these patients that they've never seen before.
Yeah. I'm curious, Dr. Philippe, as to how you do what JC has just described. When you take a person who's suffering from chronic pain, and you talk, JC, about root causes, for example, how do you get to what caused that chronic pain in the first place? Because that's where you have to go to start unraveling the story, right?
Yes. And we have a very effective assessment protocol, which is a 3-step protocol. One step being totally insufficient as with respect to this type of intractable condition.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it. We'll take a quick break here, and because I wanted to, when we talk about the process, I wanted to be able to describe it from start to finish. So let's take a break a couple of minutes early here, and when we come back, our guests from Neurokinetics will talk about how you can be integrated into their programs to your benefit. Enormous benefit, I hasten to add. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650, and we're right back after this.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.